welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Friday, September 5th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect in my life for over 21 years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download from that page the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. We invite you to click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download from that same page a whole host of internet shows where people have, just like this one, where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon Game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get an email or question from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. Alternatively, you could join us live. You can go to your zoom.us and type in the meeting ID 853-2357-4173. That's 853-2357-4173. And then you'll have the option to listen, type in the chat room, speak directly to us, etc. If you're calling in on a phone on one of the many landlines or whatever that they offer, you can use the same meeting ID, 853-2357-4173, and then once you're on the show and listening, you can mute and unmute yourself in a toggle fashion by hitting *6. And we encourage people to do that and give us feedback and let us know how these things are landing for them, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work when we know how these things are landing for you. So we're wide open for comments, questions, answers, directions. We've done a little bit of reading from the Way of Mastery Lesson 4 to try and describe what the energy of desire is as defined by the Way of Mastery. and to introduce the concept that there is this energy there. It's very subtle and yet very powerful, and we can learn to discern it, to really tune into it, and we can then, if we choose to, stay aligned with it throughout the day. And when we do that, when I do that, my life is dramatically different in ways that go beyond words, each new heartbeat. And so I'm not going to spend any time trying to describe it. I'm just going to offer it as a suggestion and an exercise that you may or may not choose to engage in. And there are one or two different exercises, at least in the lesson 4 of the Way of Mastery, where they introduce the concept of desire, and they present these exercises as a way for people to specifically, consciously work at first establishing their awareness of this energy, and then strengthen their ability to discern it and allow it to be part of the to inform any choice you make, thought, word, and action throughout the day. And then just watch, does your life get better, stay the same, get worse, in your opinion? And if you do any of that and have some feedback for us, we'd be happy to hear it. I think where I left off the last time, where I was reading from the book, I had just tried to skip ahead a little bit to give the exercise last Friday. And here we are a week later, and we haven't gone back to it yet. Other things have come to the surface to be discussed. And so unless somebody pipes up and asks a question or wants help with a worksheet, I've done several worksheets this morning already, and all I'll say about that at this point is that they still work. They still have benefit, and I suppose that it's happening over time, that over the past 20-some years, I've practiced with this tool and practiced the part of the goal canceling and then putting myself in a bit of a meditation and a mantra where I'm asking to be shown something new. I'm canceling everything my conscious logical mind is telling me, and sometimes is so adamant about being right about, and I cancel my need to be right. And the word subtle comes to mind a lot. So what happens most of the time is very subtle. And every once in a while, there'll be a really sharp, bright, clear insight or a powerful shift in energy. But for the most part, I have to slow down and be willing to recite the forgiveness patter for, a few minutes. And then the other interesting trick for me is to learn to trust what comes up. And instead of trying to interpret or work with it, just jot it down. I think I mentioned one of these yesterday, one of the weird ones that happened that was not subtle, but it's, it's opaque in its meaning. But as I did the forgiveness patter and asked to be shown the hidden part of my mind, etc., I got a very strong image of the original Superman TV show from the opening credits, and the words truth, justice, and the American way. Now, this wasn't subtle. This was crystal clear. It showed up. I just had to chuckle at it for all of the years that have passed since that memory on this black and white TV in our home in Indiana. So what's the meaning of that? I haven't spent any time trying to just decode it. I just leave it there. I've read that worksheet and the notes I made from it. It's one of those where, as I did it on the app and then tried to send it to myself, it didn't send it. And it just crashes, the app crashes, and it goes back to the opening page. That's happened several times recently. So I'm working on a system that will help me screenshot the pages just in case they get lost in the internet, and or to just as I go, if I have the capacity, if it feels like a useful, really powerful worksheet, I'll make a note of what was the thought, what was the goal, what was the emotion, and then what was the clearing or the impressions that I received when I was reciting the forgiveness pattern. And so now that's there, and I know it's there. It's in my awareness. It's not as hidden in the subconscious as it was prior to doing that worksheet. So my hunch is something about truth, justice, and the American way will start tying into some other processing I do, whether it's worksheets or journaling or whatever. So without further ado, I will return to the reading of Lesson 4 in the Way of Mastery, somewhere near where we left off. I think it's probably useful to back up a little bit. The beginning of the page here, it says, healing requires the willingness to feel desire, to see the desire as good, and to see it as holy, see it through the eyes of reverence. And then it asks the question, well, does that mean that your desire is always pure and can't be corrupted by the ego? And the response is, of course not. There's always the possibility that desire will be twisted to meet the needs of the egoic mind within you. However, please rest assured that if it does, you're the one who's done it. Always within you, you've known that this energy that we're calling desire is good. However, you've suppressed it. Now, what they don't say here is, you've been taught by your culture to suppress it, to fear it, or to label it as bad or wrong. And then the text here goes on and reads, those times when desire came forth and you let it become twisted into serving the goals of the ego, you always knew perfectly well what you were doing. You were the decision maker. You've learned, therefore, to fear desire, because that fear is the effect of fearing yourself. And that is what cripples you. That is what cuts you off from the creative flow. That's what leads to everything your world knows as the multitude of psychological diseases. It's an unwillingness to trust oneself, an unwillingness to love oneself, and the belief that the desires that move up through your beingness are something evil and dark. I think the last time we did this, we mentioned the quote that is sometimes attributed to Nelson Mandela and sometimes to Marianne Williamson and sometimes to others, but the quote about how you don't really fear the darkness in you. You fear letting your light shine. You fear the changes that would happen if you stepped into your full conscious creative ability. So the text here goes on and reads, you think that if you could stamp them out of your being, then you could remain in control and everyone would like you because you could conform to the smallness and the littleness that is worshipped in human consciousness. Now here's another sidebar. We've talked about this recently several times in the support group, I think also on the internet show, that we're living in a culture that trains us and conditions us to put people and things on a pedestal, to deify people and to worship things and money and accumulation of stuff. And it's perhaps the most, certainly one of the most pervasive aspects of our society. And what they're trying to point out here is that if you deify or glorify your ideas about another person, or if you deify or glorify some possession or accomplishment, that you're keeping yourself really small. You know, oddly enough, you think it's giving you greater value. You think it's giving you greater accomplishment or purpose. Let's say if I go to an Abraham Hicks reading and Abraham calls on me to sit in the chair and I just get filled with all of this expansive sense of self-importance, all because of, oh, look, I'm in front of all these people and they think what I'm saying makes sense, and isn't that wonderful, and aren't I such a fine boy, and all that good stuff. And what this teaching is trying to point out to us is that's less than a speck of dust on the tip of some foam on the wave in an ocean that literally connects you to the core and the power of the ocean itself. But it's not worth focusing on. It's not your greatness. It's not your own creative capacity. It's fear-based, it's separation-based, it's false, and it keeps us stuck. So the next segment is part that I have, circled in red on the page. It says, understand well, the next axiom will give you. And this axiom says, quote, the only relationship that holds any value at all is your relationship with God, with your creative source, the depth of the ocean, close quotes. So sitting with that and just noticing what comes up in you, they offer some suggestions of the kinds of things that they imagine would come up for you. Right away, the mind says, quote, but what about my mate? What about my parents? What about my children? What about the President of the United States? What about the postmaster? Close quotes. You will come up with a million examples of relationships that surely have great importance. And yet, the only one that holds value is your relationship with your Creator. For when that is in alignment, all of your creations, all of your choices for relationships and how you will be within them, all of that will flow effortlessly from that alignment. Therefore, seek first the kingdom, which is inside you. It's your connection to your source. And then all these things will be added unto you. Not accumulations, but a deeper felt sense, the realization that none of those accumulations of titles and possessions and or relationships has any value for you. They're trying to help us understand that I flashed on a thing by Neil deGrasse Tyson, where he was talking about, you sit here on the planet and you think you're sitting still, but you're really moving through space at thousands of kilometers per hour. And then our whole solar system is moving through space at thousands of kilometers per hour. And we're not just spinning in an elliptical orbit or a circular orbit around our sun. We're actually spiraling because the sun is moving through the galaxy. And so we're spiraling around it. And we don't have any awareness of any of that. And yet, with the conscious logical mind, we think we're going to sort out what our life is and what we're supposed to do and what's really important. And this teaching is bringing us back to the realization that that can't be done with the conscious logical mind, because the conscious logical mind is only working with the inputs of the five senses and the training and conditioning of the language and the culture that you were born into and that you've lived in. So it doesn't matter how many millions of examples you come up with of relationships that must surely have great importance. The only relationship that holds any value at all is your relationship with your creator, with your creative source, with the depth of the ocean. Because when that one is in alignment, all of your creations, all of your choices for relationships and how you will act within them, all of that will flow effortlessly from the alignment with your creative source. The text goes on and reads, if you are to be in right relationship with your creator, it is absolutely necessary to correct your perception and relationship with the energy of desire. Now, they just used the word perception, and we're in the fourth lesson. In the third lesson of this very book, it talks extensively about how perception is false and judgment is false, and our lives get better and better by leaps and bounds as we dismantle our perceptions and our judgments. And if we can wake up and recognize what actually happens in our energy system, even the physical cells in our body, how they do not function properly whenever we've judged anyone or anything, we would never judge again if we truly understood what was happening there. So in this next lesson, it says, if you're to be in right relationship with your creator, the creative source of energy that's still flowing through you and everything you see, it's absolutely necessary to correct your perception. In other words, dismantle your perceptions as much as possible and correct your relationship with this energy of desire, this subtle but powerful energy that moves through you, on the back of which are thoughts like, oh, gee, I'd like to go get a new car, or gee, I think I need to go, clean the bathroom, or whatever your desires are in terms of specific targets. They are not what this book and teaching is talking about as the energy of desire. What you call your desire is just the target that you've chosen for the energy that's moving through you in that moment. The text here goes on and reads, it begins by releasing your judgment of desire in all of its forms. Every judgment you have about desire, cancel it, release it, let it go. Come at it with what this book later talks about as divine ignorance. Come at it and ask to be taught by it or by the power behind that force or energy that we're calling desire. So you need to begin correcting your relationship with desire by dissolving and releasing all of your judgments about it in all of its forms. For again, the text goes on and reads, for again, you can only be in love or fear. You can only be in innocence or judgment. Love and innocence are of the kingdom. They're connected to the source. They flow from the source. Fear and judgment are of illusion. Again, fear is of illusion. Of course, in Miracles says there's only love or fear, and only love is real. So there's love, and there are illusions, hallucinations, delusions about something being less than love. The next segment is titled Releasing Judgment of Desire. And the text reads, learn then through simple practice to interrupt the patterns you've learned from this illusory world. Do that so that you release judgment of the energy of desire. This will be different for each and every one depending upon where you begin. Here's a very simple exercise. When you awaken in the morning and you've planted your feet firmly on the floor, take a pause and ask yourself this question, quote, what do I want right now? Close quotes. Right away, the mind will say, well, I'm too busy to know what I want. I've got to go off to work. I have to serve everybody else. I'm here to satisfy the world. I have no time to ask myself what I want. Please remember that when you decree something, that's what is. And the thought you hold in the mind will be reflected through the nature of your experience. Again, they're coming back to the first axiom that says you don't experience anything outside of you. Nothing that you experience is caused by anything outside of you. Your experience only reflects the effects of your own choice. So they're coming back to that again. You're experiencing things based on the thoughts that you value and hold dear. So please take pause and ask yourself, what do I want? Go ahead.
Hi, so I'd love to stare based on the conversation we had last night then.
You hold on.
Okay.
You want to do what? Tie what
Based
into
on,
the conversation last
I would,
night?
could you repeat what you said right there, that whole statement?
Okay.
That you
The
don't
statement that I was reading from the book. Okay. So here's the first axiom in this book. It gives us a variety of axioms. The first one shows up on the 5th page of the book, and it reads, quote, nothing that you experience is caused by anything outside of you, period. You experience only the effects of your own choice, period. Now, right above that, as it introduces the first axiom, it calls it the first step in awakening. And it says the first step in awakening is to just allow this axiom of truth into your mind, just to see what happens. Just allow it so you can start playing with it and observing it. So the quote is, nothing you experience is caused by anything outside of you. You experience only the effects of your own choice. This is how 7 different people can be standing watching a movie or an event and come away with 5 or 7 or 14 different interpretations of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that your desire is creating everything you experience in the outside world or the flow of life and the people that come to you. They're not saying that. With that statement, my mind tells me they're not saying that. What they're saying is your choice of how to interpret and respond to it creates your experience of it.
Okay, perfect. So if we use our dialogue last night around Mary's feedback, that was her experience. That was so the content of her mind. So nothing. I want to make sure I land this for me. And I saw an observation, and I want to get clear for me. So nothing I experience, it happens outside of me. So nothing, right? You experience nothing outside of you, and you experience the effects of your own choice.
Right. There is stuff happening outside of you.
Yes.
Your experience of it is created by how you choose to interpret and respond to it.
Exact. Okay.
And the way that now Michael Ryce would say, you're not choosing, it's the automatic decision process, because most of the time it's just the auto response of, the non-being mind, or what Guy Finley calls the mechanical level of mind, etc. However, my thoughts jumped there. I just keep coming back to the experience we've had so many times when we were meeting in person for the support group, and we would have one of Dr. Michael Ryce's videos on. when we watch an hour of the video, and then we'd have time for personal convenience, and then we'd sit around the table and discuss it. And on a regular basis, we'd have 4 or 5 or 6 different opinions about what Michael was actually talking about, or the purpose for his bringing up this story, and we thought we all have this illusion that we're all watching the same video. The fact of the matter is, there may only be one video playing, but there's a whole different world of stuff happening in the mind of each person that's ostensibly there listening.
Yeah. And that's what I was wanting to view from last night. What was up for me last night when that was going on? It had nothing to do with what was being said. It was what it brought up in me. And so I reflected with that. I started to listen to the audiobook that you suggested, which is amazing, by Stephanie Fu. And then I sent you the interview this morning with her therapist and her, which was a brilliant interview. And I wanted just to share it with you for context.
That's the video that I had referenced last night when I shared the book with you.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Right. That's the video that she did after the book came out as a promo for it. And originally, I believe it was posted on Instagram.
Okay. Beautiful. It was, I got a chance to watch the whole video this morning. So it was beautiful. And, you know, last night was up for me. So what was up for me, and I'll just share with it because in space of openness, right away, because I have a perception that men are unsafe because of my conditioning. Right away, I started wondering, do I need to be prepared for that? And right away, just equal to I'm in threat. Am I being forewarned because threats coming? Oh yeah, a whole bunch of thoughts came around that. And then recognizing also with what you said the previous 2 days before, when you reach a new level of vitality, you know, stuff comes up. And then also my first 3 memories, the healing will match exactly how it went in the trauma. So that's up. That's really up for me. A whole bunch of meaning making was going on for me. And the best part is I didn't go tripping the hole for too long. And okay, this is beautiful because I get to do a reframe. So, and I love that statement you said that nothing that I experience is outside of me. And it's the effects of my own choice that I'm experiencing and the meaning making that I'm making of it.
Yeah. When you were talking there, I flashed on one of Pema Chodron's books. She tells a story about being invited. Now, she's become known. She's an author and she's a Buddhist monk. And, you know, she's fully an adult woman. She's probably at least in her 50s, if not her 60s at this point in her life. And she gets invited to one of these ashrams or retreat centers. And what an honor, right? And so all this good energy, people like me, they like my work. This is great. They're going to be there like kind of an expert. And she tells the story about how it was just this constant roller coaster of feeling excluded and feeling exalted and feeling, you know, put down. And it was just this chaos, all because of the stuff that was able to come up in her because of her vitality. Now, she didn't talk about this, but we understand from this work that she was on a big emotional high. Mm-hmm. She was reaping the rewards of all her hard work and study in the Buddhist tradition and her own personal practice and her authoring these books. And she was up here and she got there and she felt beat up like you wouldn't believe. Yeah. And then the next minute, somebody would ask her to lead an exercise and she felt all pumped up and proud. And then the next minute, she would go into the next endeavor and present herself as, oh, here, I'll lead this. And they would say, no, sit back in the back of the room. And we all go through that kind of thing. If we have the ability to take a step back and watch, we'll be able to see, hey, we go through that same thing ourselves. When
Yeah.
somebody gives us what we consider words of praise, we go, oh, all right, and look at my energy changes. And somebody gives us what we consider an insult or a put down or, a dismissive response, we go down in the dumps or we get full of anger. And so in this work, we just call each other to pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I could feel protection over Michael, that need to want to protect. Yeah, I feel emotional about this, and I did worksheets last night on it about the whole fear, like just all the stuff that's up around it. And so I just appreciate myself for the capacity to be the observer and just to
So
notice what was up
what
for me.
you said there's fear up right as you started the tears coming.
Yeah.
What target do you have for the thoughts that generate fear?
Well, the fear is that I'm going to be taken advantage of was the thought. Like, am I being, yeah, it's almost like a grooming feeling. This is all new, even as I've been
Okay,
talking.
so
It goes, sorry,
if
and also goes back to what you said. I want to just bring this in because it goes back right from the very beginning when you talked to me about my intentionality for taking on this facilitation. And the micro movements of just reading it, trying to read everything along my path for fear of it being in harm, right? So even that's playing all the way back to that position. And I've not lost that thought of what you said back then. Then last night I could read the energy of people as well. All three of you, Faith, Mary, and you. I could read the micro movements of that energy. And then, so there's a perception in my head around threat.
okay, and so what's the big bad negative that would happen if somebody took advantage of you? What's this take
Well,
advantage of you phrase mean?
yeah, and that's an old memory because it wouldn't happen now. But with the meaning I would have made it, that I'm powerless and I'm trapped. That would have been the meaning making of the little girl.
Yeah, that'd be a good one to
Yeah,
pay attention to and start, giving some extra work to see the false nature of it and dismantle it. And again,
yeah,
in this work, all that means is more use of the tools. It doesn't mean long discussions with other people about it. It doesn't mean
yeah,
thinking it through till you find the right answer, because those are the false, what Michael would
yeah,
call the non-being mind's cheap copies of your true spiritual faculties. And your true spiritual faculties will guide you through all of this rather seamlessly,
yeah,
right? So the simple, you know, Michael used to have a worksheet that said, if I'm in pain, I'm in error.
yeah,
And the power and purity of that for me, for years, since I first read that on one of the first worksheets that I was introduced to, has been a real good, bright guiding light for me.
yeah,
And now on the worksheet, it's been amended to say, if I'm in pain, my thinking is in error. So
yeah,
somehow maybe that's a little bit more palatable for people to let it in. Even the Course in Miracles says in its, a new beginning lesson, it says, no, we understand how difficult it is for you to admit you're wrong. So we don't want you to say you're wrong, but perhaps you can admit to yourself that when you're in upset, anger, negative emotion, whatever flavor you want, perhaps you could admit to yourself that you don't like how it feels.
yeah,
If you could just say, gee, I don't like this feeling, then it's a simple, easy step to, I hope there's another way to look at this situation.
yeah,
And just that at a root core, right? Right after the active observation that I'm the one that creates my internal experience,
yeah,
then if I become aware of an internal experience that I judge as painful or uncomfortable or unpleasant, I could step into that. And I don't have to say I'm wrong or I'm creating this falsely. I can just say, I really don't like how this feels. I hope there's a different way for me to look at this. And if I'm just willing to say that and open up, it's literally asking to be taught, asking to be shown by life. Another way to arrange whatever 9 bits I'm focusing on so that the experience I have is at least neutral, if not positive, and keep out of all of this fearful negative routine thought that I keep practicing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was really good was my process last night. It was really being able to step out into observation, not in judgment or just interesting. And even
Okay,
our
so right
exchange.
now you've shifted away from the emotion. How did you do that? What happened to the tears? What happened to the fear? What happened to how this world is so dangerous and I'm so helpless? What happened to that?
Yeah, I pushed it back underground. Yeah, so that will be I will sit with that and do the worksheets and sit with that.
So I'm redirecting you back to that so you could make some notes about, okay, here was
Yeah,
the thought, here was the emotion, here was the triggering event, whether
yeah.
it was what happened in the group last night or something that I said today or
Yeah, I think
something
it's
you
just
think I said today, and just
no,
make
it
the
wasn't what you
notes so it
said.
doesn't
Yeah,
fly away.
yeah. It wasn't today. I was actually felt relief today when what you said, what you validated in the statement for me, it was validation for me when you said we're at the experience. When you said that, that felt like an opening to bring this forward. So,
You mean the first axiom of this work that you
hmm
only experience the effects of your
yes,
choices? Okay.
it was an opening. So that felt good. And then I didn't even know those tears were there. And that came forward through our discussion. And so that's the next step, is to sit with that part of me. Yeah, to sit there. Yeah.
Yeah, I just encourage people to make those notes soon and often because the mind is so slippery and tricky. Another case in point just happened yesterday or the day before when I was doing a worksheet on the app, and then I went to send it to myself through an email, and the app crashed. And then I had a hard time recovering. What was the thought? What was the emotion? What was the goal? You know,
Yeah.
and all I was able to really hold on to in the beginning was that image of the old TV Superman and the words "truth, justice, and the American way." And then I had to try and go back and try and piecemeal put together something that made sense about what that worksheet was because it just flew right out of my conscious awareness.
Yeah. And I think the goal is I want to feel safe with men. And then so last night, all that happened. It was tripped my wire into,
Okay, so just take a breath because now you're in the tears again,
yeah,
and just be aware of what's this energy coming up in you. Don't pay so much attention to the thoughts safe with men. Pay attention to the energy in your system and notice what you're feeling. And you could do the same kind of exercise we did one of the last times you and I worked together on the internet show here and visualize size and shape and texture and then, do the body journaling kind of thing and ask where it's
yeah,
located in the body and when it first got put in. You can do that kind of work. But please assist yourself here by staying focused on what you're feeling physically, the felt sense, the visceral sensations, and make notes of them. Put the conscious logical mind on the shelf for now and just really tap into what does it feel like? Does it feel grounded? Does it feel floaty? Does it feel hot, cold? Does it feel nauseous? Does it feel tight or tense, heavy or light? Play with it and explore it for yourself before you let your mind go into what's causing it. Because the mind with its, here's what's causing this, is just an illusion, a distraction. Years ago, one of my favorite books was Babette Rothschild's book, The Body Remembers. And decades later, when Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote one of his newer books, he chose the topic, "The Body Keeps the Score." So he's basically stealing the title and the concept and modifying it just a little bit. But it's ancient wisdom that our bodies contain really useful information for us in these energies that flow through it.
Yeah.
And we're living in a culture that's basically trained us out of paying attention to that, and trained us into, as Einstein would saying, take what was supposed to be the faithful servant and elevate it to the level of master.
And it was very helpful when you shared yesterday, I believe, around, there's energy, and then we have a sensation. And then from the sensation,
We've been taught to label it certain words
as an
and
emotion,
emotions,
yeah.
right?
And so now you're helping me go back just to the sensation,
Yes.
without giving it any meaning.
Yes.
Well, I have to give words to what I'm experiencing, but not just to the best that I can find it.
Right. But there's an entire body of therapy work titled somatic experiencing.
Yeah.
Body experiencing. And there is, that's one of the reasons I was pleasantly excited to share Dr. Ingrid Clayton's work, because she announces in that work that she's trained in somatic experiencing therapy, because that's, the body keeps the score, the body remembers, the energies of the power person dynamic that get downloaded, they're carried in this energy system that I call a body.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of good information in there. If I can, as Michael Ryce would say, if I can get out of my mind, if I can be out of my mind, get out of my head.
And what you're saying now, even in chapter 4 of The Way of Mastery, that the energy of creation, the desire energy, which is pure and love, and then taking that energy and focusing it onto these other, through my mind, and I want to say, filtering them into a different vibration, and which I'm labeling right now in my body as terror, uncomfortable, anxiety, chaotic, disheveled, confusion, tension.
Okay, so the tension I'll take, right? The terror, we put that on the shelf for now. That's a thought process.
Okay.
Tension, heat, pressure, vibration, agitation. Pay attention to those kinds of words when, at least in this specific area where you're trying to tap into the somatic experiencing or the body experiencing, because it's so rich. There's so much good information there.
Yeah, I can see that now, because back to what you said, what was the uncontrolled response? For example, dilation you use, the body's doing that.
Unconditioned.
Unconditioned, thank you. And just that makes sense now. So if I'm describing tension or heat or pressure, that would be an unconditioned response, correct?
Yes. And when you say a word like terror, oh boy, are there a lot of conditioned associations with it, right? And they might be from way back in my early childhood all the way through my experiences yesterday afternoon. But that's me using that conscious logical part of my mind trying to say, oh, let me get a hold of this, because if I can label it, I can control it. And we're encouraging people in this work, like in the forgiveness pattern, it says, I cancel my need to be right. I cancel my need for anyone or anything to change, including myself. I put my conscious logical mind on the shelf for now. And then I just put as I asked to be shown the hidden parts of my own mind, but then I put myself in the most open, allowing space I can. The open, allowing space doesn't have language in it. The open, allowing space is the place that Rumi refers to when he says, out beyond judgments of right and wrong, good and bad, there's a field. I'll meet you there. That's what we're inviting ourselves to experience and tap into, because it's always with us. But even in every single reality management worksheet where I'm engaging the forgiveness pattern, I'm inviting myself to remember Rumi's out there in that field. Everybody else is out. There aren't anybody else, but they're all there, right? This paradox that we have of feeling and seeing people as separate, and then acknowledging that we're all part of this flow of life. So when I start labeling things like, oh, I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling terror, now we are several levels removed from the actual felt sensation.
Yeah. And you're helping me realize what you said yesterday about that experiment where they did the physiological response was the same for everyone, but people's interpretation of whether it was excitement or terror.
Or terror, right.
So what I'm realizing right now, because of past experience in the moment last night, I was already constructing a reality.
Right, a conditioned response came up very strongly. And it's a response that is, you're only feeling it as a cause and effect because of the conditioned connections within you.
This is some great stuff. This dismantling is, I'm so grateful for that video this morning with Dr. Ham and Stephanie Fu, because it was prep for this moment in my dream time also. That I could witness and be a safe witness with myself with your assistance.
Okay, and so before we run out of time altogether, what, if anything, can we do to help you clarify what you're becoming aware of that you can use as targets for future worksheets or journaling?
Well, I just have to, I sense I'm going, thank you for that question. And I'm going to do work with around the sensations without meaning making. And then I'll come back and see what that brings up, and we'll go from there.
Okay, that's. I just want you to hear the offer.
Yeah, I
appreciate to be
that.
Specifically supported in capturing at some kind of conscious level these energies and their flow. And once you get those down, I was going to say trust me and believe me, but don't question everything. But once you get those down, my experience has been that all of those old associations will come back in a heartbeat. Right? You're not going to have any trouble remembering the terror and the events from the past. You might have trouble remembering the visceral sensation. And that's just the way our minds work, right? We're just set up for that. So in the chat room, we've got, is it Stephanie Fu? Yeah, Joe Bryson. It's Stephanie Fu. Her book is What My Bones Know. And Joe says he's holding a space for you, Susan, and holding a space for all from Sally, and good breath and great work, Susan, all from Joe. So if you're complete, Susan, to wrap up today, I will just come back and just highlight this exercise one more time. That we've read this once before, but we've gotten away from it before I've really gotten through it. And one time I got about halfway through it and decided I'll jump ahead and tell you the whole thing. But just a little bit here about these. Exercise for releasing judgment of desire. And then the text reads, learn then through simple practice, learn to interrupt the patterns you've learned from this illusory world so that you release judgment of the energy of desire. This will be different for each and every one depending upon where you begin. Here's a very simple exercise. When your feet hit the floor in the morning, take a pause and ask yourself, what do I want right now? And as your mind says, I can't do that, I'm too busy, I've got to please other people in the world, just slow down and recognize you need do nothing. That's another lesson later in the book. And ask yourself, what do I want? Remember that what you decree is, and the thought you hold in the mind will be reflected through the nature of your experience. So if you keep thinking, but I don't have time to do that, and I can't, and what people are going to be so bent out of shape if I'm 10 minutes late for my appointment, I can't take 10 minutes to do that now. So if you decree you can't, you can't. You won't. Henry Ford said this. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. And then it says, so take pause and ask, what do I want? And then simply give yourself 1 minute to observe whatever comes up in the mind, or even whatever is felt in the body. Heaven forbid, you might want to have sex. Oh, and then you would know for sure that you're not a spiritual being. You might want to take a shower. You might want a glass of water. You might want to sing. You might want to stretch or breathe. You might want to arise and sneak into your children's room and watch them sleep. You might want to turn and watch your mate sleeping in bed. You might want to sit down and read the morning paper. The point here is to simply notice that by asking the question, something will respond within you. Try to tune into how subtle this is. Notice that by asking the question, something will respond. And the exercise is observe the response and release any judgment about it. Notice that when the response comes, there will be a feeling associated with it, a felt sense within the energy system you call a body. There will be a quality that makes your cells sting just a little bit. That is the energy, the elixir of life called desire in this work. That very subtle energy, that awakening and tingling in your cells. Not the thought that you generate as a target for that energy, but the energy itself as it arises within you. In this 1 minute, you need not rise to act, but simply observe. Oh, what do I want? Well, to take a hot shower. The feeling of the thought, or the thought that emits the feeling in the body, quote, I want to have a shower. That thought, those words, that specific target is carried on the elixir of desire. Desire is coming from the depth of your being, that once again, the depth of your being rests right next to the face of your Creator. Might it not be the case that by following the desire that wells up through your heart, by feeling it, by embracing it, might you not learn and discover what the ocean is wishing to express through the wave that you are? If you judge desire, might you not be shutting off the creative flow that the mind of the God, the mind of the Creator, wishes to express through you? Of course, that's the problem here. You've tied the hose in a knot through conflicted judgments. Here is a very common one in your world. So be honest. How many times have you felt the desire to be wealthy? It is not something you're supposed to sit around and talk about or make very public, especially if you're trying to be spiritual. So if you have one of those thoughts that arises in your mind as a desire for wealth or power, and then instantly you notice the tightness or tension or contraction, this exercise would ask you to release it. Release the judgment, release the tightness and tension, restore the flow to your breath, and wake up and realize that it's 12 o'clock. So I thank you all for being here and listening and for your comments and your work. Does anyone know what Dr. Ham's first name is? This is Cami asking. Cami,
Jacob Ham.
yeah, Jacob Ham or Ham. And I'll send you a link to that video, Cami.
Would you send it to me also? Because I didn't want to interrupt earlier, but I would really like to see that too.
Yep.
And there's only one M in his last name, Ham.
All right, so I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Blessing.